Ben from the Heartaches, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, tell me, what's the best thing about being in a band in Australia in 2018?
For me, and I think for us, getting to travel around the place and meet new people and meet like-minded people and share a mutual love, whether it's music and hanging out, that's probably the thing that really makes me tick about it, and I think Alex as well. We equal parts love making records though, so, we love it all.
Yeah. There seems to be a community spirit about the Australian music scene at the moment, that a lot of bands have put on their own festivals and take a shitload of bands on tour with them. Are you feeling that vibe?
Yeah, definitely. It's been something that's been very true to what we do and what we represent forever. Like coming from Adelaide, there's not really that much that goes on there. So it was always, well, you got to make your own fun. So we always put on our own festivals and brought bands down from interstate. And now we're at the point where we can take bands that we love out on the road with us and, give them the opportunity to play to a whole new audience. And yeah, really fucking love it. It's really cool that I think because Australia's got such a small music community, it is very tight-knit like that. Everyone kind of knows everyone and everyone's had something to do with that person, or their friend has something to do with that person in that band. And, it creates this real tight community. And, being smaller, the crowds also have that same kind of attitude, I think. Like everyone's that goes to a show in that city probably knows the person standing next to him or has stood next to him at a show before, and it helps create this really beautiful friendship in the community. It's you should feel like home at shows, and I think that really helps, that the bands all feel like family with each other, and same with the audiences.
There also seems to be a bit of a punk scene, if not punk, just a minimalist approach to instrumentation at the moment, with you guys and Cam Cope and Smith Street Band.
For sure.
Where does that come from? Do you think it's a bit of a kickback to the laptop rock that's on the radio?
I think the punk ethic is there. It's come from the same place as punk rock, and we've all obviously learnt to play guitar probably from listening to punk rock. I know I was brought up on Billy Bragg and The Clash and bands like that, and that definitely influenced the songs that I ended up writing and the way that I ended up playing. And Alex is the same, we all probably met through a mutual love of punk rock bands. Whether that's represented wholeheartedly in what we're doing now, it's still kind of there at the core, it's come from just, all right, here's some chords, here's some lyrics, let's just bang it out and see what happens. I think all of our bands just wanted to hang out and play shows. There was no, we want to be on the radio, we want to do that. It was just, we want to just do what we love and the music that we love. And it's really cool that the music that we've been playing forever since we started when we were kids has kind of become more popular with the audiences now. So, we're in a position where we can play all this type of music and the way that we want to and the way we always have, and kids are resonating with it, which is sick. Because when we were doing it, there wasn't many kids that were still into it. They were either into metalcore or hardcore or EDM or some other bullshit. But now it's kind of come full circle and kids want to play guitar again.
So what were those albums that you grew up with?
The first album that I really, really loved was actually the first Living End record. I remember getting that for my 8th or 9th birthday. And that was the first album I owned, the first album I really fell in love with. From there, I kind of weaved in and out of all the 70s punk rock stuff, being London Calling, or any of the Billy Bragg records, because I was exposed to his whole discography. They're the kind of bands and records that really kind of put me here anyway, in musically.
The duo format with you and Alex, you seem to be enjoying, but you also don't seem to be sort of too married to it. You bring on extra musicians and extra voices.
The two-piece thing for us happened accidentally. Alex and myself have always been the driving force behind the band, whether it's with recording or songwriting. It's always been us two, and then whoever we had in the band at that time, they kind of came in after that. So when the bass player we were playing with at the time moved on to other things, we just kept going, and we had shows coming up, and we just kept going as a two-piece. And over the last few years, we've kind of worked on that sound and tried to figure out how to make a two-piece band sound interesting and big enough and full enough to get away with it. And now I'm comfortable. Alex is heaps comfortable. I think we've really figured out how to do it. But yeah, we're not married to that idea of being a two-piece. I think we'll always be a two-piece as a live band sense, but when it comes to making records, having other people involved and other musical brains is super important, I think, to have another person's perspective on something that you've probably heard or thought about a million times. Having a fresh set of ears and a fresh voice on something is really cool, and it makes it a lot more fun too, because it is, whether we like it or not, it is a big community-based thing, and having other people involved in a record is just something that feels right. It doesn't feel weird like we're getting special guests in. It feels right to have these people hanging out in the studio. So,
the new album coming out is called Mess. Why is Mess the title track?
I feel like as a title track, Mess kind of really sets the mood theme-wise, and just the all-around song just kind of sets the mood and tone for the rest of the record. The hook, "We're Not Burning Out," is pretty much the message that we wanted to put out through this record of, we're not fucked. We're all okay. Whether we feel okay or whether we feel like we're doing good, whether things are pretty shitty at the time, things are okay and things will be okay. And I think that Mess, the track, kind of really captured that feeling. So it kind of set the mood for the rest of the record.
The album touches on issues such as mental health. Why was it important to address stuff like that?
Look, it's something that I've personally always struggled with, and something that's been really real to me in my life and in my music. This was the first time that I'd taken a step back, and I'd had a lot of people that I thought were invincible, these big, strong people in my life that were having a harder time than I thought, and it kind of put a few things into perspective for me, that it wasn't just me, because I think when you're going through these mental health challenges, it's a very selfish thing. It is. You're stuck in your own little head, in your own little world, and when it become a bigger, I got to see it from the outside for the first time, I think, and it pushed me to want to write some music that wasn't all woe is me, my life's so hard. It was kind of all right, we're all in this thing together, and we can all break this fucked up stigma that surrounds it of being a weakness or being something that you should be ashamed of, and let's talk about it and let's try and get better together.
What about sonically? You brought Sam Johnson in to produce the album.
Yep.
What did he bring to the projects? What's his production style?
Sam just felt so right for us. We had always wanted to do something with Sam. We'd worked with him in other ways, in live scenarios, and just known him from around the place for a long time, and we wanted to do a record with him, so we went and did a single with him last year, and it just felt right. Alex and myself both produce and engineer records ourselves, so we needed to find the right third person that'll fit into that, because it's not just one person driving the ship and we're playing the music. It's all three of us in there together, creating this, whatever the end product's going to be. And Sam just is such a good energy in the room. Even if you've never met him before and never worked with him before, he has the ability to get the best out of anyone, which I guess is the strongest trait I guess a producer could ever have, is to be able to make everyone feel comfortable, because we're lucky that we do feel very comfortable in a studio, but I know a lot of artists wouldn't feel comfortable in a studio because it's this big scary thing. But Sammy just worked perfectly for us. He had also made some great records we loved and had a really nice studio, and everything just kind of aligned perfectly. And yeah, look, we enjoyed doing it so much that I can't imagine us doing anything without Sam in the future, which is a nice feeling.
And tell me about the gear that you used on the album, the guitars and amps.
So, I'm really proud of this record because, again, it doesn't have a bass guitar on it, which a lot of two-pieces still use a bass guitar on their records, but we wanted to try and make it as true to like our live show, but still like a polished record at the same time, still a produced record at the same time. So I think I ended up using AC30 for my main guitar amp and a Fender Tone Master, a vintage one. I can't remember what year it was, but it was one of those amps you just turn it on and plug it in and you're like, yeah, there it is, there's the sound, we don't have to work for it. And an old JTM, which we used for like the fuzzy dirty guitars. Pretty much all the guitars on there were my one Telecaster, my one workhorse guitar, and it's basically a Phil Kubicki Telecaster, but it's kind of built out of his parts. So I call it a Bitzer Tele, but it's essentially a custom shop Telecaster. And it's one of those guitars that every time we go into the studio to experiment with other guitars or other tones, we always end up back on the same guitar because it just works for me as a guitarist. It's one of those guitars that I played it, a friend of mine owned it and I played it and I was like, this is my guitar. Like it just felt like it belonged in my hands. And since then, like I'm yet to find a guitar that kind of rivals that, hence why we tour with one guitar because nothing else feels right. Like we experimented a bit with some other stuff on this record, but we always end up coming back to my Telecaster for the guitar sounds, which is really cool. I love that I have a versatile guitar that we can manipulate the sound to be a whole bunch of different sounds rather than having an arsenal of guitars, because if you don't need them, which is really cool. And for the bass, we actually just used the JTM again with a bass cab, and there we go, fake it till you make it.
And what about Alex? Did he basically just use the one kit?
Yeah, so we used, a friend of ours, Alex Wackham, has a really nice top-of-the-range Pearl Masters that we've used for recording before. And it just has the nicest sounding toms. You just put the skin on, tune it up, and then it's there. They're so well made that it just is what a drum kit is meant to sound like. So we essentially didn't fuck around too much with the drums, but the snares, obviously, I think we brought in like 10 snares and just tried them all, recorded a whole bunch of sounds, and then we ended up using a Ludwig Black Beauty, which is obviously the go-to snare for almost every record that's ever been made, which was really fun. It's a challenging snare to use for a band like us because we like to tune the snare down a fair bit, as well as, like the way that Alex plays isn't necessarily the way that most people with a Black Beauty would play. So there was the challenges of tuning it every second take. But as much as it was a pain in the ass at the time, I'm so glad we went that extra 9 yards to get that snare right, because it's the snare sound we've wanted from every record prior to this record that we've been trying to find, and we managed to find it, which is it's nice that the sounds, especially sonically, we already knew which direction we wanted to take the production of the record. We obviously, both having studios, we demo pretty hard and pretty intensely, and so when we go into the studio, we're pretty much ready to go. We know how we want to get that sound, what we want to do, what instrument, what other things we can do to kind of build that song. So, going into the studio, we already had a pretty good idea of how we wanted to make it sound, and Sammy just complimented that. It was really nice, he was on the journey with us, which was really nice. It wasn't us trying to sell our ideas to him. We had the same ideas the whole time, which was cool. His vision for the record was the same as ours, which you can't really fake. That just kind of happened, and it made it such a more pleasurable experience because, hey, it should be fun, and it was definitely fun.
You're taking the album out on the road, I think April 13, the tour starts. The Corner Hotel, the first gig. Any issues playing these songs live? Any adjustments?
I think the hardest thing is when you get to a point where you've got so many, you've done so many releases, you have so many songs to choose from, you don't get to really road test the new tracks. Whereas when you're making your first record, you're touring the songs, so you're really honing in on them and figuring them out as you go. Whereas we didn't really have that opportunity now. We had to, there was one or two that we would play live, but for the most part, these songs were unheard. So for us, it was we demoed them up and we worked on them to the point where we can go in the studio and make them, but we'd never taken it to that live audience before, that live environment, and just going back and rehearsing up all the new tracks now it's been really fun, and like really it's been a new challenge for us to figure out, to not have done the songs 100 times live before. We're just, all right, well, I think this is good and I think this will work. Let's just make it up as we go along. It's really exciting, this tour. It's the first tour we've done venues that warrant a bigger show and a bigger production, which is exciting for us. We love that side of music. We love to be able to put on a show rather than just playing in a sweaty downstairs basement somewhere. Like it's a different game. And for a two-piece like us to really get the sound and put on the show we want, it really helps having a venue like the Corner, or venues that size with the production that allow us to do what we want to do, which is exciting. It's nerve-wracking as well because we've never headlined venues this size before, but you know, you got to give it a crack.
Tell me about the support bands you're taking out with you.
So we've got Antonio and the Lazy Susans, who are this really incredible band from the Blue Mountains. They were one of these bands that were relatively unheard of, and most of them had never even played in a band before, and they just worked really hard and recorded this EP, and it's incredible. It's way beyond where their experience should have led them to be. And we just kind of become obsessed with it and became buddies with them over the course of the last couple of years, through them being fans of our band, which was really nice that we fell in love with their band, hopefully somewhat the way they felt about our band, which is really nice. And they're a band that I think in a few years everyone's going to be talking about, oh, remember that band that we went and saw them play in this small venue, and no one cared about them then, and now they're this big exciting deal. Because they deserve it. They're the perfect package. They're an insanely good band, insanely good people, and they're singing about the right things, and they're really intelligent. I'm really excited to see a band like them grow. Sincerely Grizzly are another Adelaide band who are releasing their new record on Alex's label Anchorhead. So it kind of made lots of sense for us to take Sincerely Grizzly out. That's definitely like we want our friends to come out on the road with us. Not only are they a great band, they're really great people they're the kind of people you want hanging out in your green room. You're not going to be upset that they're hanging out at your show. You want them to be there. So, and it's just I think we've managed to pull together a really interesting lineup. It's not 3 or 4 of the same bands. It's like 4 bands that are all have the similarities, but they're all very interesting in their own right.
You've got the album Mess coming out, you've got the tour happening. Are you the kind of band that thinks beyond those things? Is there a grand plan?
Grand plan, nothing further than, all right, we need to start demoing the next record. That's kind of as far as a grand plan's gone for us. We've already got to a point that's way beyond our wildest of imaginations that we thought we ever would get it as a band. So we kind of we've never approached it as like, here's what we want to achieve and here's how we want to get there. We've kind of just gone along with it, and here we are, which is really cool. Like we never had the hopes and dreams of being a big band, or we never wanted that. So we've just let it kind of grow organically, and we'll just continue to do that. I think we've got some time on our side now to work on the next record. So I'm going to spend the next 6 months writing really heavily to get a head start on the next record. I'd like to get another record out next year. We all like to think that you'd be a band that releases a record every year, but the realities aren't that. But so we just keep working on it and keep doing our thing. Like we'll start doing some overseas touring and see where that takes us. That could sweep us up and take us away for a long time if we feel so obliged to go down that path, which we will. We're just not in a rush. Also, we're just doing our thing.
Right, Ben, thanks for your time.
No worries, thanks.